Welcome to Conversations with the Coach by Center for Peace, the podcast where we have candid conversations about addressing and correcting the abuse of women by men. I'm your host, Coach Joy, and each week we'll dive deep into the stories, the strategies, and the solutions that help restore the dignity in the lives of those affected by abuse. At Center for Peace, we believe in the power of education, understanding, and actionable change. We'll be talking with survivors, experts, advocates, and those who have committed to making amends, providing a platform for voices that need to be heard and stories that need to be shared. Together, we aim to foster a supportive community where we not only discuss the impacts of abuse, but also focus on the steps necessary to heal, empower, and restore dignity. Join us as we explore the complexities of abuse, challenge the societal norms that perpetuate it, and highlight the incredible resilience and strength of survivors. This is more than just conversation. It's about inspiring change and creating a safer, more respectful world for everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Hey, everyone. Today, I want to discuss our long-term survivors. I think it's a good opportunity for us to really stop and sit in the respect and the honor of women who've been trying to navigate this for years, long before we ever said the abuse word, long before we even had the term betrayal trauma. Like, many of us have been working to find answers and to understand what's going on inside of our homes and our marriages and with our significant other for a very long time without a lot of really good help and resources out there. And so to those of you who've been navigating this for decades, today's an opportunity for me to pay tribute to you, to honor your tenacity, your strength, your endurance, and also for paving the way for the rest of us who have come alongside us now in the last few decades, especially as the pornography industrialized complex has just exploded. We've got several decades of time now with young men who grew up on the internet, grew up on the porn culture within the internet, and have gotten caught up in that, being able to carry around their secret sexual basement in their back pockets, to have access to it all of the time. The accessibility and the anonymity of pornography has just really blown up our human social fabric. And I want to sit in this a little bit today because, especially in addressing women who've been navigating this for such a long, long time. Many of us came from the print era into the digital era, and our spouses made that transition. And, we really got caught in a crossfire where men who did more than porn, who had sexual behavior outside of just the digital arena with other human beings, wives and families kind of became, throwaway, and also throwaway and then, rebound. And we got caught up in a cycle of consume, regret, return, and then discard again, and so there's been this whole process of trying to navigate a really cyclical pattern of behavior, of sexual behavior, as well as all the abuse that goes along with it that we talk about more outwardly today, where we talk about the gaslighting behaviors, all of the deception, the lies, the blame shifting, the darvoing, all of those more common things that we talk about now. That was all just really deeply embedded in it. When any time we called out our husband and said, "Hey, I found out about this," or, "Hey, what's going on? You seem really distant. What's happening?" And then to have him get angry and and we didn't have the language for it back then. We only knew that things were right in our marriage, and we had nothing, no resources. If we attempted to reach out to a friend or family member, we get the takes two to tango language. So a lot of things haven't changed, but there just wasn't enough. There wasn't the um, it wasn't as pervasive. It was kept more quiet. A lot of people lived in that narrative, within the narrative that you don't air dirty family laundry, and so it was really easy to enable the secret lives that men lived, and there wasn't a place for women to really feel the pain and the devastation of it. And to have their stories heard. And then once that, maybe there was, once the so-called SA recovery communities started to take off a little bit, and then the S-anon groups, then we were the codependents, and we were blamed for being, part of the addiction process. And I'm using all my air quotes here with all of these terms because they really are egregious victim blaming terminology that's been used to mutualize the unilateral actions of one against the will and well-being of another. And so now here we are, many decades later, without a lot of change in the progress. There hasn't been a lot of progress. If anything, I think this has devolved and gotten much, much worse, and impacted so many more marriages and homes. It's hard for women to be seen in the mental health community still. It's hard for women to be seen in the legal arena still. And so, there's some good that's come from it, and then there's still a big, huge problem that we're still trying to work through. I remember years ago listening to Jackson Katz talk about this issue as a men's issue. And I really want to lean into that. And if I've got men listening to this podcast, please search out Jackson Katz's video. You can find it on YouTube. He does an amazing TED Talk presentation where he really unpacks this concept and why we need men to come alongside this issue and really address it for what it really is. We won't be able to resolve the issue of this just the collateral damage that comes to human beings unless we really put the responsibility on the people that are perpetrating the problem. We don't ask somebody who's not the cause to fix a problem. We need to go to the cause and see that the solution is put on the backs of those who are causing the problem. And that's what we try to do at Center for Peace. At Center for Peace, we believe that abuse can be corrected. We believe that while it will take incredible amounts of work, that these are permission-giving beliefs, that these are choice behaviors, that there's a way that people think. And we've got all the language now that we can use. We can call this misogyny, we can call this male rights. We can put a lot of terminology on it. But the problem is it's harm-causing behaviors that are enacted outside of an expectation within a relationship that should be seen as covenantal or contractual, with some higher honors and some higher respect and dignity than what's being afforded a marriage today. Nobody likes a cheater. Nobody wants to be cheated on. And a lot of times these men are multiple. I mean, they've got multiple women that they string along. So it's not even just the family, the wife and the children that are impacted by it, but also the other people that are lied to and also cheated on, that are caught up in this horrible condition that just is permeating part of our social fabric. And until we really put the onus of responsibility back on the perpetrators, the people who are causing it, the people who are doing the damage, and hold them responsible for the fallout of it all, like you men who are committing these heinous acts need to see this as damaging to human beings. When you think that this doesn't hurt somebody, you are so wrong. When you think that your behaviors and you can live your life like you want, absolutely you can, as long as that behavior isn't going to destroy your wife or your children, as long as whoever that you are engaged in a relationship with has consent, which means full knowledge and full awareness. So if you're cheating on your wife and you have a girlfriend or two, that's she can't even consent to it if she doesn't know that you're a married man, having a engaging in a relationship with her. I mean, we need some honesty on the table here, because the fallout is tremendous. The fallout is huge. And until men actually start to see the consequence that goes along with all of those choices, they're going to keep giving themselves permission, keep calling themselves good men. But good men don't hurt people. Good men don't cause a human wreckage everywhere they go. Good men honor the promises that they make to people. And if you feel like you're in a relationship that is not serving you well, men, do the right thing, do the good man thing, the honorable thing, and do what it takes to get out of that relationship so that you can move on if that's your choice. Um, we we cost one another dearly in our relationships. We're not throwaway people. We're not a consumable social system that we can just use and transact with and then toss aside when we're done with it and move on to the next one. People aren't starter people. Marriages aren't starter marriages. We're not trying each other out and seeing how it goes. We've got a lot of wrong thinking behind all of this, that we really do need to stop and take a look at in order for us to really be able to take our social systems into a more healthier dynamic for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren, for the generations that are coming alongside behind us. Um, Marriage is the fabric of this human social system. Relationships are the structure, the foundational structure, the rebar of it. And when there's not strength to that, there's no, it's like building your house on a sandy foundation. It's not going to hold. It's not going to hold. Life doesn't hold. And we entangle ourselves with people. We entangle finances. We entangle little lives of little people who are dependent upon us for their growth and their well-being. They're dependent on us being able to provide for them some solid structure that they can grow from. And when we talk out of both sides of our mouths, live one way, and talk one way, our children see it, they learn from it, and they will model it. So fathers of boys, please check yourselves, watch what you're doing, and watch the messages that you're teaching your young sons. Fathers of daughters, are you wanting your young daughters to be in relationships with men who are unfaithful? Do you want to see that heart broken and destroyed because that's what she learned too, that this is what, if you want to be in a relationship, this is what you have to put up with. This is why many young people now they're not looking for marriage, because marriage is so painful and so costly. The fallout, the ripple effect of this is really tremendous. And I know I'm on my soapbox today, really harping on this because it needs to be said. It needs to be acknowledged. We need to talk about it. And as long as we're going to sit under our rocks with our head in the sand, we're never going to affect change. Change only happens when we start to promote a social narrative of truth, a social narrative that's reasonable. Like that is the only way that we're going to be able to change the trajectory that we're on, because this is heading for a massive crash. There isn't any way that we can survive this as a human race unless we can stop and recenter ourselves and refocus ourselves on some pro-social values that are respectful of all humanity. In Center for Peace, we run a program, a year-long program for men to correct abuse, because we believe that abuse is correctable. We believe that it's a matter of adjusting some of the attitudes and beliefs that have been allowed to foster within our society, and to be able to get a hold of those beliefs, to learn to see other people, to have a theory of mind that not only encompasses you as a human being, but the other individuals in your life, particularly a wife. If you take a wife on to create a life with and have a life-giving, long-lasting experience with, then you need to plug into that relationship with 100%. We can't be half in and half out of that kind of a commitment. That's not a commitment. We're either fully committed to the human beings that we engage with, or we need to not engage in those kinds of relationships, because, as I said earlier, the fallout is tremendous. And we need to take better care of one another. We need to be more respectful of one another. I get that sometimes there's individuals who don't do well, and for whatever reason, a relationship may need to shift or change when you can't get the right help, when you can't, when you find that. And I'm saying can't also with my air quotes, because I think most of the time we can learn to work things out, if we're willing to put in the effort, and if we're willing to learn to be the type of human being that can be a relational human being. We can do those kinds of things with others. There isn't a gentleman in any of my programs that hasn't said that it's easier to do it at work with coworkers than it is to be, relational and emotionally healthy and intelligent with everybody else but their wife. So that seems like a big red flag to me. That seems like a choice, and not a condition of ability, but a condition of unwillingness. Something else that I want to talk about today in conjunction with this idea of correcting abuse is that this isn't something that's safe to do in couples counseling. Couples counseling is not the place to work on correcting abuse. Abuse is a unilateral decision that one person does against the will and well-being of the other person. So the person who's the victim needs to be separated from the person that's the perpetrator in order for both people to receive the kind of care and help to be able to safely talk through, come to understand what they're up against, how to make the right kind of course corrections, and make those agentic decisions that they need to make for their own individual lives. Once a wife has been abused, she absolutely 100% has the right to consent out of that relationship and to not want to engage with the abuser again. It's 100% an agentic decision that no one has the right to judge, no matter how long she stays or how short she stays. Staying in a relationship that is destructive, marred with abuse, is not an easy journey. And women who choose to stay for reasons that are important to them, and we honor their right and their decision, just as we would any woman who does not choose to stay. And those social narratives that we have about why women stay or don't stay, we really need to work through those too. There's so much victim blaming in all of that we really need to eradicate from our social narratives and the stories that we tell ourselves about all of that. When we are working with couples at Center for Peace, we do work with both the husband and the wife, but we do so independently, separately, and safely, so that both human beings can have the space and time to be able to think through, work through their own experiences. And then we try to bring those experiences together, if it can be done, safely, learning how to reintegrate. And it isn't always a guarantee, because agency is a huge thing. You get to choose your behavior. You get to choose your thoughts. You get to choose your emotions. These things don't happen to you. They're created and constructed by each human individual. And as such, sometimes a person will hold on to their story, their narrative, and will be unwilling to see the other partner. And this is usually the men that I'm talking to right here. It is usually the men that hold on to a narrative that's destructive, and it puts a wife in a position where she can't reason with him, and she has to just be quiet and endure. And that's an untenable situation for a human being. You have to even take the gender out of that, because no human being should live under that kind of oppression. That's just oppressive. And when somebody's controlling the narrative like that, an abuser controls that narrative, there's no space for that wife to express herself and to feel the feelings that she has, and learn how to talk to and negotiate with somebody who's spent, maybe decades abusing her, lying to her, cheating on her, gaslighting her, hiding things from her, maybe controlling money, maybe being a difficult parent, partner, and maybe even spiritually abusing her. So the compounding of damage to her necessitates that this gets unpacked in a very careful and a very patient process, so that she has the space and time, um, not because she's not well, but because what he's done to her is so egregious and so untenable. And until he can speak to those behaviors, the impact of those behaviors, using her language, understanding her words, um, and being able to restore the dignity that he took from her, he's not going to heal either. He's just going to sit in a negative story that's usually highly toxic, um, and and promote that narrative, usually sharing it with anybody that will listen to him and collude with him, and that's not going to go anywhere. So this is a long process. It's not an easy process. Changing a human being is not an easy process, but it is a doable process if the individual is willing to do it. Restoration and recovery are doable processes, but you need the right kind of help. You need the right kind of language around it, and you need the right kind of space to do this in. And it doesn't happen in couples care. It doesn't happen in the so-called recovery communities. It happens with somebody who understands how to treat abuse, what to recognize in the behaviors, and how to see it and how to call it out, and how to work through some of the self-protecting behaviors of thinking that you're a good man, but not producing the fruit or the actions or the evidence of how a good man should live his life. So if you're looking to understand how to unpack abuse, what abuse really looks like, how to weed through all the narratives that are out there in the mental health communities that address these issues, please come to Center for Peace. We run women's groups on Monday and Wednesday. We have a year-long program starting in September, and we would love to help mentor and work with you to see if dignity can be restored and peace and harmony can be restored to each of you individually and to your marriages. Thank you so much for tuning in and for listening again. This is more about a conversation. It is really about inspiring change. It's inspiring global change and creating a safer, more respectful world for all of us. We'll talk to you again next time.